This was a decades-long struggle between two absolute titans, a conflict that would ultimately decide the fate of the entire Mediterranean world. And it all really boils down to this one huge question. You've got the heirs to Alexander the Great's legendary military machine on one side, and on the other, the relentless, rising power of the Roman Republic. So how in the world did this happen? How did the world of the legion completely overthrow the world of the phalanx?
Okay, so to really get this, we've got to understand the two giants at the heart of this thing. Because this wasn't just another war, It was a collision of two completely different and incredibly powerful worlds.
So first up, on one side of the ring, you've got Macedon. And listen, this wasn't just some other kingdom in the Greek-speaking East. This was the heartland of an empire that only a century or so before had stretched all the way to India. We are talking about the home of legends. You got to remember, it was King Philip II who had turned its army into this absolute machine, the most feared fighting force in Greece. And then his son, Alexander, took that army and basically conquered the known world. So by the time Rome shows up on the scene, Macedon is the established superpower. They set the standard for military might. But, while Macedon was kind of resting on its legacy, a totally different kind of power was rising up, and fast, over in the West. A power that wasn't defined by its past, but by its just relentless ambition. And that was the Roman Republic. Yeah, Rome's story was completely different. This wasn't some ancient dynasty. This was a republic forged in the fires of constant, non-stop warfare. I mean, they had just barely survived two massive wars against their great rival, Carthage. This wasn't a power protecting a legacy. This was a hungry, proven force, organized and ready to expand. Period. So you've got this great power of the East and the rising power of the West. They're separated by the Adriatic Sea. So how did they finally end up in a fight to the death for total control? Believe it or not, it all kicked off with a war that wasn't even about Macedon. The Second Punic War between Rome and Carthage was like a Mediterranean-wide firestorm that almost completely wiped Rome off the map. And in a conflict that huge, every other power had to make a choice. You had to pick a side. Who are you going to bet on? Well, back in 215 BC, with Rome looking like it was on the ropes, Macedon made a bet. A really fateful bet. They allied with the Carthaginian general Hannibal, hoping to see Rome crushed for good. But Rome didn't break. They held on, they fought back, and in 202 BC, they beat Hannibal. For good. And you have to know this about the Romans. They had a very long memory. Just 2 years later, a victorious and, let's be honest, a vengeful republic turned its legions east. What happened next wasn't just one war. Nope. It was a whole series of them, stretching out over decades. And this long simmering conflict, this tension between the old world and the new, it was all going to come to a head in one single epic battle that would decide absolutely everything. Okay, remember this year, 168 BC. This is the year of the Battle of Pydna, the final winner-take-all clash of the Third Macedonian War. For both Rome and Macedon, this was it. All the chips were on the table. At the heart of this battle was this classic matchup of military styles. On one side, you have the Macedonian phalanx, this massive, dense wall of soldiers with these insane 18-foot pikes. It was basically a human steamroller. But on the other side, the Roman legion, and its genius was its flexibility. It was made of these smaller, independent units that could adapt to any terrain, and it encouraged soldiers to take initiative right there in the heat of battle. So it was brute force versus deadly adaptability. So here's how it all went down. At first, the Macedonian charge actually worked. The phalanx started pushing the legions back. But its greatest strength, that rigid, unbroken wall of pikes, was also its greatest weakness. See, as it moved forward over uneven, broken ground, little gaps started to open up in the line. And the disciplined Roman legionaries, they didn't even hesitate. They just poured into those gaps, got inside the range of those crazy long pikes, and, well, once they were in close with their short swords, the fight was over. The Macedonian army was just utterly shattered. So what happened after Pydna wasn't some long, drawn-out negotiation. It was swift, it was total, and it was permanent. And it really showed a major shift in how Rome started dealing with its enemies. You see, Rome didn't just sign a peace treaty. They took the kingdom of Macedon apart, piece by piece. First, they broke it into 4 puppet republics that answered to them. Then, after crushing one last rebellion, they just dropped the whole pretense of independence, and by 146 BC, the homeland of Alexander the Great was officially just another province in Rome's rapidly expanding empire. Okay, so why are we so focused on this one battle? Why does this conflict matter so much? Well, because the fall of Macedon wasn't just the end of a single kingdom. It cemented a completely new reality for the entire ancient world. Think about it, with its two biggest rivals, Carthage out in the west and Macedon in the east, now totally defeated and broken, there was simply no one left who could even think about challenging Roman domination. The power center of the Greek world, which had been dominant for centuries, was now a thing of the past. A new master was in charge, and the Mediterranean would never, ever be the same. And this whole incredible story really leaves us with one final big question to chew on. Was this whole thing inevitable? Was the disciplined, organized, relentless expansion of Rome just bound to steamroll the fractured kingdoms that were left in the wake of Alexander's empire? It's a question historians are still arguing about today.